Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the English translation of the Majlis of Hazrath Maulana Qamar Uzzaman Saheb Damat Barakatuhum, which took place on Wednesday, the 6th of Rabiul Akhir 1444, corresponding with the English date 2nd of November 2022. This Majlis took place after the Esha Salat at Falah Darain, Tarkesar, Surat, Gujarat, India. Now, Hazrat Wala starts off this majlis by quoting the ayat of the Quran Majid, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan maradiyya, fadkhuli fi ibadi, wadkhuli jannati. Thereafter, Hazrat Wala goes on to say that this is a very, very important ayat, nihayat, muhtam bishan ayat hai. And Allah Ta'ala mentions and speaks about His ni'mat. So you want success, the success that is mentioned in this ayat, कामयाबी तो काम से होगी, न कि हुस्न कलाम से होगी, फिक्र के ihtimam से होगी, zikr के iltizam से होगी. Success will just not come like that, but you have to do work, you have to do something, not just by sweet talks, rather having fikr for one's islah and being regular with one's zikr. So you have the nafs ammara and then you have the nafs lawama. Allah Ta'ala doesn't address any one of these two nafs. They are not deserving of being addressed. It is of such a level that they don't even deserve the attention of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So Hazrat Tanvi Rahmatullah Alayh has translated this kitab. I mean, there's so much of it in there. And so long as a person does not come out from Ammar Gi and Lawam Gi, he does not deserve to be addressed by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Now these are the three categories of the different nafs. So the nafs ammara is the one that continuously commands one to do guna, and there's no type of remorse whatsoever after committing those sins, so much so that it leads and take a person into the kabair as well. So how can that ever be deserving of being addressed by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala? Similarly, Allah Ta'ala speaks about the nafs lawama, that one that blames itself, the one that rebukes itself. It commits the sin, but there's so much of ihsas in it that it says, but how come you're doing this? Why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. So Allah Ta'ala takes a person out of Ammara and Lawama. Allah Ta'ala bless us and let us reach nafse mutma'inna. Now this nafs, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam also made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this nafs. Allahumma inni as'aluka nafsan bika mutma'inna tu'minu biliqa'ik wa tarda biqada'ik wa taqna'u bi'ata'ik. So there was, I said this before, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab was what another alim, a very great mufti. And he said to his peer bhai that, kya baat? That tawajjuh that I was getting from Hazrat Tanvi initially, I don't find that with coming anymore. I wonder what it could be. And then Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab says to him, Kuch aapke andar barai paate honge, that it is greatly possible that he's finding some type of pride and highness in you. Airs about yourself. Har kuja pastis, ab ajarawad. Water goes to that place, to all those areas which are low-lying. Similarly, the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can never ever come into the heart of a person until or unless he humbles himself totally, annihilation of oneself. but he was the Pir Bhai. They enjoyed and shared one sheikh and they assisted one another. I mean, that was Pir Bhai. But let's look on the other hand, the other example that I wish to quote to you. What about the Rasul Bhai? Umar radiallahu ta'ala an asks Ubay bin Ka'b, who was someone who was junior to him. But then too he asked and he benefited. From this we learn that sometimes, on many occasions, we also get fuyuz and barakat from the juniors. Look at Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam's incident. When Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam entered her private chamber and found the fruits which were out of season, which was impossible for her to have at that point in time. And he asks her, where did you get this from? And she says that, hiya min indillah, it is from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now look at that, how junior to how senior. One was a ummati and the other one was a nabi. At that time, Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam was taken aback. He was astonished by that, and his mind turned to this point that if Allah Ta'ala can give her fruits out of season, then why can't Allah give me children at old age? He makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah gives him that child at old age. So, you can also benefit from the young, but you have to have inkisari, you have to lower yourself. The walis, there are many, there are so many sitting here as well. Now yak sa'at ba sohbate awliya, just sitting for a moment in the companionship of the awliya, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is better than 100 years of ibadat without riyah. Now, what is it that it is better than 100 years of ibadat with sincerity? How does it reach such a high stage? This few moments in the company of the awliya, it is because a person leaves this ananiyat of his. He leaves everything aside and he bows down to someone. He humbles himself in front of someone who is a human just like him. Why? Only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, we also understand from the hadith the most beloved posture and the closest a person can gain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that of sajda. Why? He humbles himself so much that he takes himself and puts himself into the sand. Allahumma inni as'aluka nafsan bika mutma'inna. Oh Allah, I ask you for nafs mutma'inna. Such a nafs which is satisfied with you, tu'minu biliqa'ik, which has conviction in you, wa tarda biqada'ik, which remains happy with your decree, wa taqna'u bi'ata'ik, and which is satisfied with your gifts. Now these are the sifat. These are the characteristics of the nafs mutma'inna. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made ta'aleem to the ummah. जिसने मिटाया अपना नामो निशान हफ्त इकलीम का बना sultan. That person who lowered himself, he humbled himself, he erased all traces of himself, he then becomes the sultan. He becomes so popular rather throughout the entire world. This is the share of Hazrat Maulana Mohammad Ahmad Saheb. What about the couplets of Hazrat Haji Imdadullah? मैं अपना नामो निशा मिटा बेटा. That I'm sitting here, hidden. I've erased all traces of myself. I humble myself completely. I am lost here in this one corner, if you want to say it that way. Shohra uraya mera kisne. I wonder who has made me so famous and made me so popular. So who doesn't want the nafs mutma'inna? However, we have to ponder closely and see what are the characteristics that we need to adopt so that we can enjoy such a high stage, the stage of nafs mutma'inna. So when a person makes mehnat, he walks that path, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes so pleased with him. Allah ta'ala says, Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. Return happily, well pleased to your Rabb, while he is well pleased with you. A person has to have all his paperwork, his passports, everything done. Then he can pass and then he can go on to that side. Similarly here, once a person does whatever he needs to do, whatever he's supposed to do, and then Allah Ta'ala calls him with such honor. When a person is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala then calls him. You know, there was some gathering of the king, and at that gathering and that jalsa, an announcement is made that certain person increase his salary, increase his stipends. Why? Because वो मुतरस्सिद फरमान है और चौखट पर नासिया फरसा है. Because he's always waiting for my hukam. And he's got his forehead at my doorstep and at my threshold, just waiting for me to release the order, let it come from my lips, and he's running his way to execute whatever I need. A buzruk was passing by there and he let out a screeching sound. Cheek nikal gayi. People went, Hazrat, what happened? You went into hal. You let off a screeching sound. What's happening? He says, Aisa Allah Ta'ala ke yaha har din har waqt ye hai. He says, exactly like this. Every day, all the time, there are announcements of this type made from the grand court of Allah Rabbul Izzat, that increase the reward of certain first person because he is mutarassid farman. He's obedient to me. He's waiting for my hukam. And he always has his head at my doorstep, at my threshold, in front of me. He is making sajda. Allahu Akbar. So Hazrat Mujaddid Saheb says that to say Allah just once, a person covers the journey of hundreds and thousands of miles. So he says also that I have no other desire except that I can find a corner of solitude in which I can carry out the zikr of kalima tayyibah. This kalima tayyiba was coming right from before. When Musa alayhi salatu wasalam inquired, Allah Ta'ala made talqeen and instructed him to also carry out the kalima tayyiba. We should also keep this wird and have a practice of the kalima tayyiba. When Mujaddid Saheb was in jail, and then his sons write to him that we are grieved, we are in sorrow and remorse. We are in such type of pain because of the separation. He said, listen well, this is famous, that the father feels it more on the separation of his children than even the children can feel. And then even an example is quoted there, that example of a finger which is then cut off or amputated. So what happens? For a little while there's some type of life or something, and it's there and it's over. But the piece of the finger that's still attached to the hand, and that's okay, that's always restless, and that's always in cry and in pain, that where is my other part? Allahu Akbar. But he goes on to say, listen well, that even this year, the emancipation of your father from the dark cells of the prison, even negate that. But there's nothing difficult. We should turn our attention. We don't have to dig up a mountain. It is absolutely easy. So were these some just ordinary people? No. His son was Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom. He had 900,000 murids. 7,000 alone were his khalifas. The other son was Khaja Muhammad Masoom. He said to them, listen, make takrar, say, negate even my emancipation, my freedom from the cells of the prison with La ilaha illallah. When we say La ilaha illallah, we negate there also shirk. A jali, the major type of shirk, and shirk khafi. When we say La ma'buda illallah, there is none worthy of worship but Allah, the major type of shirk is negated, and there is only pure tawheed. And when we say La maqsuda illallah, there is no objective besides Allah. Then we have negated the shirk khafi, the minor type of shirk. And the hadith teaches us, Inna yasir al-riya'i shirkun, that the slightest type of riya and ostentation is shirk. So this tariq and this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolutely easy. You know the kitab that I've compiled, and in there are principles written. Now from amongst them, the first one there is Tawheed. Tawheed, because it is the foundation of our matter. How pure your Tawheed is, that's how much the path will open up in front of you. So Mujaddid Saab, Mujaddid Al-Fithani, Allama Ahmad Sirhindi, what type of Tawheed did he possess, and how overwhelming what it was that from the presence of Ujjain, he was saying that, and then that tells you about his Tawheed, and he doesn't even leave that there. He goes on to say that this kayfiyat and these spiritual states that I've achieved, I could have never achieved it outside. It was Allah's hukam that I stayed here, and because of that I achieved this high stage and this high stages. So don't make me the objective. Let the objective be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also go home and tell this to your mother. Make her understand this here. Listen, if life allows, we'll meet. And if not, most definitely we'll meet in Darussalam, in Jannat. Now this was the yaqeen that they had. Mujaddid Al-Fithani wrote his maktubat. And he made the suluk and this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so simple. Even the hard portions there or something that could have been confusing, Khaja Muhammad Masoom opened it up and made it so easy. Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq. Allah bless us with nafs mutma'inna. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib used to say, a mu'min can never ever even be in nafs ammara. Rather, he starts off with nafs lawwama, because every mu'min, no matter how weak he is, when he commits a sin, he is always sad about it and rebuking himself. Allah Ta'ala let us reach nafs mutma'inna. So no nafs is worthy that it be addressed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not the nafs lawwama and not the nafs amara. So irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya, return happily to your Rabb while he is well pleased, while your Rabb is well pleased with you. Return happily to your Rabb while your Rabb is well pleased with you. So, when we return, what is it about? We are happy with the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Allah ta'ala becomes happy with our a'mal. So here our friends are different. Everything is different here. But on that side, everything will be special and different there. So then, enter in my bondsmen. فَدْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي, enter amongst my chosen bondsmen. وَدْخُلِي جَنَّتِي, and enter my Jannah. Now, where you stayed your entire life amongst the pious people. So there on that side also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say that enter amongst my chosen bondsmen. Now, insan is such, wherever he goes, he wants his family and his friends. So there also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings this type of ni'mat before he even mentions the ni'mat of Jannah. That enter amongst my chosen bondsmen. Here you'll get no taklif. The Jannat is such, no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard of, and it has never even passed the heart and the mind of any person. Here you will see such beauty there that you would never seen such beauty here. There you would listen to such type of music. I mean, here the music is haram, but there it will be permissible. Similarly with that of sharab and wine. So this ayat has so much of a consolation for us. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made dua and taught us the dua, but let us adopt these sifat also. And this is why we go to the mashayikh. Why? Because it is खरबूजा को देखकर रंग बदलती है, पकड़ती है. It is this muskmelon that stays with another muskmelon and it becomes ripe. It gets color. First it's unripe and it's hard. So the sifat. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib used to say at least one time in the day, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannat. At least one time in the day, ask Allah Ta'ala for refuge against Jahannam. Allah Ta'ala even gets happy that what I have made the desirous, the obedient things. My makhluk is asking for that, and they seeking refuge in me against that which is disliked by me. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says that in the initial stage of Islam, the ayat that were revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were more regarding Jannah and Jahannam, so much that enthusiasm and an eagerness was created in the hearts of people to do ta'at, and such was the ayats of Jahannam were mentioned, that fear gripped the hearts of the Sahaba. Now, on one occasion, Hazrat Maulana Ali Mia Saheb, a man of such great capacity, he comes to Allahabad for a jalsa. He comes to meet Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb, who was his senior. And then he says, Hazrat, I'm going. So Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb says, but speak about Jannah and Jahannam. He says, but Hazrat, I don't have subject matter on that topic. So he says, he stood up immediately, picked up Ruhul Ma'ani, opened it up, and showed so many ayat regarding Jannah and Jahannam. On one occasion, Hazrat Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi said to Hazrat Tanvi, Hazrat, kya baat hai? What's it? That Allah Ta'ala has made so much mention of Jannah and Jahannam, but ulama and the Maulvis hardly speak about it. So Hazrat Tanvi then replied, what you're saying is definitely correct. Nevertheless, he has written so beautifully in this kitab, what can I say? I think he has even broken the pens, meaning written to his fullest, to its fullest. So now, you done so much, Allah is pleased with you, you don't deserve to live in the world. Rather, irji'i, return to us now. Allahu Akbar. In the dunya, all of this year you abandoned and you stayed away from it because of us. Now today everything is permissible for you. Much to be said. However, we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal wa na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. Oh Allah, I ask you for Jannah and all those a'mal, whether they are verbal or practical, which will take me closer to Jannah. I seek refuge in you against the fire of Jahannam and all those deeds that will take me closer to Jahannam, whether they be verbal or practical, qawli or amali. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb used to tell us, pick up the munajat and maqbool, especially on the big nights, etc. He says, ask Allah for all these du'as. Everything has been covered in there. In fact, these du'as that I'm saying to you are all in there. Allahu Akbar. So what are the a'mal of Jannah? U'budur Rahman, wa at'imut ta'am, wa afshus salam, tadkhulul jannata bi salam. Similarly, there are other ahadith. The ulama have written extensively about this, that there are so many things that will even take a person to Jahannam. They have made mention of all of this. So we need to take out all these abhorrent characteristics and qualities from us. Adawat, bughz, hasad, anger, this hatred, jealousy, etc., due to which our hearts have become black. And carry out, make a custom to yourself and to your tongue the kalima tayyibah. And do not ever utter something that will inconvenience someone else. Allah Ta'ala give us. And how can we get this nafs mutma'inna? We have to make tazkiyah of ourselves. Now let us make dua. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابُ. Allah Ta'ala keep us established on the deen. Allahumma a'tini imanan la yartaddu wa yaqinan laysa ba'dahu kufrun wa rahmatan analu biha sharfa karamatika fid dunya wal akhirah. Allah Ta'ala keep us away, protect us from all sins, whether they be external or internal, zahiri or batini. Oh Allah, we are helpless. Our nafs is rebellious. Oh Allah, make it obedient. And Allah Ta'ala has great and deep appreciation for what we do. Allah Ta'ala bless us with this in batini dalat, this great treasure, heart to heart. We have to make that koshish and that effort. Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِحُرْمَةِ سَيِّدِ النَّبِيِّ الْكَرِيمِ صلى الله عليه وسلم.